The story of Gatsy Rice is a very inspirational story from our own Lee County that we need to know to understand history. Gatsy Rice was an African-American woman who accomplished great things, like owning property, lending money, and running stable businesses. Her parents were both enslaved, and she was born enslaved in New Orleans. She was likely sold apart from her family at the age of 13, and she traveled alone with Alicia Milton to Auburn, Alabama in 1845 to be Alicia's nanny. Because she was enslaved, we do not know her exact birth date or how old she was when she passed, but we do know that she passed around the age of 70 and was born around 1832. As an enslaved person, Gatsy Rice was able to take advantage of the skills she learned during her enslavement, such as sewing and cooking, when she was free from slavery. She went on to use these skills to pursue her own career. Throughout her life, Gatsy Rice ran a boarding house by the modern-day Methodist Church on Magnolia Street for college cadets, and worked as a seamstress and laundress there. She formed many relationships here with the white community in order to keep her business thriving and have enough money to survive. Although respected more than the majority of African Americans in the South, Gatsy Rice still faced discrimination head-on. Additionally, Gatsy Rice was an owner of a millinery shop in Auburn where she sold hats to the white community to earn extra money. Sadly, the millinery shop burned down on January 5, 1892, but the burning of her business did not stop her from continuing to be a hard-working, successful woman. Gatsy Rice was a widowed mother of a son and daughter by the names of Willie and Nancy. Her belongings and her loans throughout her life are evidence that she had a financially stable career. She owned 2 houses in Auburn and a house in Opelika, alongside a 243-acre plot of land near the modern-day Tuskegee area. In modern days, it is estimated that a 243-acre plot of land would be worth about $500,000. She also made a couple of loans in her life, such as a $672 loan to the Carr family for their farm mortgage. At one point, she also loaned $10 to a man by the name of H.K. Quiller. This amount of money was rare and difficult at this time for a black woman to have. This makes us confident that she was a financially well-off and hard-working woman. She also was a very generous woman to loan so much of her money away to help others. With the death of Gatsy Rice, the rumors of her being poorer than she was arose. This shows that during this time period, the South wanted to degrade the success of African Americans to maintain white supremacy. But when you look for the truth, she was actually a prominent, rich black woman. Upon her death, she chose to be buried in the white cemetery, Pine Hill Cemetery, rather than the African American Baptist Hill Cemetery. To this day, Gatsy's grave is the only African American grave in Pine Hill Cemetery to be marked with a headstone. This marker represents not only herself, but the several other enslaved people who were buried near her, some of which were dug up and were thrown away to make a new road. The reason for her wish to be buried in Pine Hill Cemetery is still unknown, though there are multiple speculations, one of which is that her husband was buried there. During this time period, African Americans would often request to be buried in white cemeteries because they had family members who were buried there before a black cemetery was created. Another speculation is that she wanted to be buried along with all the people she worked for, since the majority of them were white. This speculation was made by the white population because they likely wanted to tell a narrative that minimizes the brutality of enslavement and supports an ideology of white supremacy. Although unknown, the first speculation is likely more probable because Gatsy was known as the widow in her community, suggesting a close bond to her spouse. This leads us to believe that Rice would likely want to be buried near her husband who passed away before the establishment of Baptist Hill Cemetery, and therefore was buried in Pine Hill. Several years later, the marker for her grave was bought by a Georgian and former boarder, which stirred up more rumors doubting her wealth. But despite all these rumors and uncertainties, it is clear with a little more research to see that she was a person of importance and good wealth. Gatsy Rice's success of moving from enslavement to a free, successful, working African American woman is an inspiration to all who hear her story. Her story offers a more accurate and nuanced understanding of those who were formerly enslaved. Instead of a narrative that describes Gatsy as only a loyal and compliant slave for choosing to be buried in Pine Hill Cemetery and being poor upon her death, her story may reveal something quite different. Gatsy Rice was an independent African American woman who worked very hard to be successful enough to make her own life decisions.